annual flooding of the Nile, through his links with Orion and Sirius at the start of the new year. Osiris was widely worshipped as the Lord of the Dead until the suppression of the Egyptian religion after the Christian era. So they suppressed all of this information that goes all the way back to ancient Egypt. You need to ask yourself, why would they suppress the information? But because they clearly did. They called anybody heathens that believed or talked about anything like this. And you also have to put two and two together and realize that if you take a look at your timeline, Christianity began, along with Islam, after the fall of the Roman Empire. So, since Christianity began after the conversion of Constantine, Emperor Constantine, and then if anybody spoke of anything besides Christianity, like paganism or things like that, which is really just associated to a variety of religions that don't have anything to do with Christianity as taught by them, is basically it's a variety of things, then they were punished by death. They weren't even allowed to talk about it. So you have to understand your history, and go back and take a look at your history. They say that they tortured all of the worshippers of Jesus, but you just take a look at the timeline and you find that the Roman Empire fell, and then right after that the Roman Catholic Church started. This was a political decision by Constantine to do it this way. Now we're going to take a look at some irrefutable evidence that's found inside of the churches. Okay? Now, the reason why this is significant is because, A, there's no way that any of these people would have known what Orion looked like a long time ago. Alright? They didn't have the technology to do this. What we find is that people were seeing this area with their mind's eye all the way back to ancient Egypt and Sumeria with the winged disc and everything else, which we're going to show you. First one I want to show you is this one. This right here is in the Church of the Jesu. Okay, this is the Mother Jesuit Church. It's my belief that these guys know what's going on, as well as the Catholic Church, but I don't believe that they knew all this was going to be posted all over the churches. I believe this was done by famous artists, and I believe it was done by them subconsciously, almost subliminal. What you find here is that this famous painting called, it's actually called Triumph of the Holy Name of Jesus, which is very interesting in itself, shows the Barnard's Loop around Orion. And right here I've got the same thing over here. Now I have sectioned this out just like I do my other ones, and you can see that this area right here has been copied and put right down here to show this area right here. Okay? So we have this match right here. This is not something that I'm overlaying on top of here like the Grox or somebody like that does, like clowns and you know, bugs with pineal glands and stuff like that. These are actual overlays that you can verify for yourself just by going there and pulling this stuff up, and you can see that they exactly match. Not only do they exactly match, but you can see that the different areas, just like right down here that I've got for you, matches this. And so they are not only matches in that way, but they are also in the same locations that they're supposed to be. And this Barnard's Loop that's circling around this bright spot, the bright spot that it's circling around is the Orion Nebula. And remember, what it's being called here is Jesus. The reason this is significant is because the Christ, or Jesus, okay, there is this consciousness, I believe, that emanates from this area of the cosmos, and I believe this is our collective consciousness. I'm going to show you this as we go on. But this right here, and you can verify this for yourself. Please go out to my folder, download all the photos that you'd like to, and just take a look at yourself. You know, you can go out there and you can verify these fractally basically are complete matches, all the way down to as low level as you'd like to go. Now, here's another little piece of proof for you why there's a correspondence to Orion, and especially Orion Nebula. It says, "Seek him who made the Pleiades and Orion, and turns the shadow death in the morning, and makes the day dark with night, who calls for the waters of the sea, and pours them out on the surface of the earth. Yahweh is his name. So here you go, right here. This is the center of the Orion Nebula. This is the heart of the soul, which you'll see here pretty soon. And this is also the internal parts of what looks like a brain, all the way down to like the thalamus, for example, which is what this corresponds to, which is the center between two temples, as we saw in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Also notice where Orion is and where Pleiades are. And you're going to notice there's a little loop, just like I showed you, Barnard's loop, spinning thing right here that basically created these stars. Okay, where are stars created? Well, they are created in star nebulas, and the closest star nebula that we see is the Orion Nebula. Here's a view of the Barnard's loop right here. And you can see that there's a Fibonacci spiral emanating from the Orion Nebula, just like you saw inside the Church of the Jesu. And here's the Church of the Jesu once again. Okay. Now let's take a look at one more part of this verse here. It says, turns the shadow of the death into the morning, makes the day dark with night, who calls for the waters of the sea and pours them out on the surface of the earth. Now let's take a look at something scientific. Astronomers observed water forming in the Orion Nebula. This was posted on April 14th, 1998. The water that gushes from your taps may have been created billions of years ago during the birth of a new star. A team of scientists using European Space Agency's infrared observatory reports it has detected such a water factory in a gas cloud 1,500 light years from Earth in the Orion Nebula. This vast cloud is producing so much water vapor condensed to liquid form it could fill all the Earth's oceans in 24 minutes. Here's something else from a scientific article from Wired Science. This is posted March 8, 2010. All of life's ingredients found in the Orion Nebula. And of course it says, seek him who made the Pleiades and the Orion. There's a book by Robert Odell, The Orion Nebula, Where Stars Are Born. Now let's take a look at this sign real quick. Welcome to Evolution. This is on the MayanMagics.com site. The symbol is called the galactic butterfly, which is said to represent all of the consciousness that has ever existed in this galaxy. This is all of our physical ancestors, both human, animal, reptile, fish, shellfish, plants, as well as the consciousness that originated all of the raw material from a whirling disk into stars, then planets, then solar systems. So it's talking about physicality and consciousness. Now, some people believe this is the center of the Milky Way galaxy, but this is taken from Carl Kalaman on MayanMagics.com down here, and you can verify this with other Mayan sites as well. It may be too early to identify the location of the center of the universe from which all the day energies of the Mayan calendar would be emanating. One ancient Mayan myth talks about the heart of the cosmos being located in the midst of the three hearthstones in the direction of the sword of the constellation of Orion. Okay, so now let's hop over here and we're going to take a look at the three hearthstones right here. These are the three hearthstones, Rigel, Alnitek, and Siph. And right in the middle of that is what you have is the Orion Nebula. It says the Maya used three stars in the constellation of Orion: the Great Blue Giant, Rigel, Kappa Orionis, the stars Siph, and the belt star Alnitek. These three stars formed an equilateral triangle called the Oxib, or the three stones of the hearth, which you just heard me read from on the Mayan Magic site. They represent the Maya hearth made of the three stones. The hearth was and is the very foundation of the Maya home. Directly in the center of the three hearthstones, you find the Orion Nebula. It acts as the flame called the Kak. The Popol Vuh, proven to be the true Maya creation myth, since the pre-classic that was preserved, the post-classic Quiche Maya in the Guatemala highlands. In this book, Orion was seen as the first father, who was known as the Hun-Hunappu, the maize god, the father of the hero twins. Now let me show you something else. Now, the heart of the sky, okay, Huracan, which often referred to as the heart of the sky, is a Quiche Maya god of wind, storm, and fire, one of the creation deities, participated in all three attempts of creating humanity. He also caused the Great Flood. After the second generation of humans angered the gods, he supposedly lived in a windy mist above the flood waters, repeatedly invoked on the earth until land came upon the sea. Notice the hurricane association. Here's a hurricane down here, and right here you have the Hunab Ku, which is in the direction of the sword of Orion, which was pointed to by Kalaman. So see, I'm sourcing this information all over the place. I'm not just sourcing it in one place. Now this has to do with consciousness. There's a couple of diagrams I want you to see here, because you always hear the story about Jesus and the crown of thorns and all this other kind of stuff. Well, if you go and you take a look in Eastern philosophy, and you take a look in other religions and cross-culture around the world, you find that, and by the way, this middle diagram right here was done by Athanasius Kircher, who was a Jesuit priest in the 1600s. They weren't allowed to teach this kind of information. But since he was a priest, he could get away with drawing stuff like this. Notice Yahweh, and it looks like an N and then an I and then an N and then a little quote is what Yahweh looks like. And as you move up this tree of life, guess what's at the very top? You have a crown of thorns. This is also seen on the Mithras, which is also the same. You have a crown of thorns right here. This right here is another way of representing the Yahweh, or the pineal gland, or as you're going to see, the center of the Orion Nebula. There's an as above, so below, as below, so above correspondence that works here. Here's Jesus wearing his crown of thorns. In Eastern philosophy as well, and here's the Supreme Mother Goddess of the Tibet, also wearing her crown of thorns, sitting in a caduceus. Also, you see right here the crown of thorns. The crown of thorns is something that you reach once your Sahasrara chakra opens. Notice the same difference between what you have here and what you have right here with the two serpents. The two serpents represent the masculine and the feminine qualities of the mind. When we jump back over here to the Gospel of Thomas, we see that Jesus said to them, when you make the two into one, it's talking about the masculine and the feminine qualities of the mind. When you make the two into the one, when you make the inner like the outer like the inner, the upper like the lower, when you make the male and female into a single one, so that the male will not be male, nor the female not be female, when you make the eyes in place of an eye, hand in place of a hand, foot in place of a foot, an image in place of an image, then you will understand, then you will enter the kingdom. Okay, so when we see this right here, when you make the two into one, then you reach your crown chakra, your Sahasrara chakra opens, and that's why you can see this. Same thing across cultures if you'll allow yourself to look beyond the Bible, which they don't want you to do because they want you to believe that everything outside of the Bible is evil, even though they've interpreted it incorrectly for you. That's why you have to look at everything, all across cultures. Now, this is a very famous picture. All of you are familiar with the creation of Adam by Michelangelo, and you can do the overlay if you like yourself, but I've sectioned this out and you can see that this is the same thing. He is drawing the Orion Nebula, and it cannot be mistaken. Even all the way down to the hand, the top here, and everything, this is definitely the Orion Nebula. If you want to take a look at the little contraption that God is in right here with a little tie on the end of it, a lot of people call this a brain, but it's actually kind of like a heart and a brain combined. We are going to see how this corresponds to the brain here in just a minute. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at the outer shell of the contraption he's in here. If you follow the lines around, you can see how it dips and comes down. It does the same thing like this in this infrared version of the Orion Nebula. The tie that you see back here, which is not going to be on any kind of a brain at all, but kind of more like it would be on a heart, is also, you can find all the lines located just like that. So you can see that what we're seeing here is what Michelangelo drew as the Orion Nebula. This is very high detailed, and I welcome anybody to go out to and download any of the photos you like and examine these in full detail yourself. You can also do the same thing yourself by grabbing a high-resolution copy of the Orion Nebula and checking for the overlay. You can see that the woman's face is here on all four, and everything else sectioned out properly. Everything is where it's supposed to be in this whole image.